what I'm going to talk about, or say, is not what everything is about. Just keep that in mind. But I looked it up. Butterfly Effect gets really good numbers when it comes to viewing.
Cool.
Like whether it's long form, short form, Butterfly Effect Wrestling gets the eyeballs. Because with this exercise, you and I, or sometimes just me, but regardless.
Depends on my availability.
we go over
how the wrestling world could change with just the smallest flap of a butterfly's wing.
Well, and here's the other thing. It's what I feel like we tend to do is we have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because wrestling doesn't have to be laborious and exactly. And here's the other thing. This Butterfly Effect is so near and dear to my heart. I grew up being a WCW diehard fan. It was my company more than the World Wrestling Federation. I wasn't anti the WWF, but I just felt like Sting and Flair had better matches than Hogan and Andre.
Probably an accuracy, yeah. Not probably, that's an accurate statement.
Right. And, the list goes on. Whether it be Arn and Tully, in my opinion, being better than, Axe and Smash. Don't get me wrong, I think Axe and Smash were cool, but,
they had a great look.
It was different wrestling.
Yes.
Now, this Butterfly Effect is very simple. It's actually something we've put our own spin on when it came to Alpha Entertainment Worldwide, which is, what if Vince McMahon and the WWF realized they were going to give up the letters the WWF when they purchased WCW and ECW. The simple decision to choose that we're going to let the World Wildlife Fund take the initials, and we are going to use what we purchased because they have years worth of
built-in name, built-in fan recognition,
and value. And so this Butterfly Effect is with Vince deciding to let the World Wildlife Fund have the WWF. They also decided that Monday nights would become WCW Nitro, and Thursday nights would become ECW Hardcore TV.
Wow.
Obviously, that means the Alliance would win the invasion.
Sorry, I'm just trying to imagine that world.
So
vast.
So, before we go over the pay-per-views that would happen in this world, let's go over who would be on which show. WCW and ECW have
secure their victory over the World Wrestling Federation.
And they have what once was Raw and SmackDown. This all started realistically, or this version of the thought process started when I saw on Reddit somebody made a Nitro logo in the vein of the post-invasion Raw, and I was like, oh, that's so pretty. And so then I made a Hardcore TV version of the SmackDown logo.
Gorgeous looking logo, too.
I appreciate you. Well, and here's the funny thing. After the invasion ended, and I'll just throw out some names that came in after the invasion. Hogan, Hall, Nash. After that, Rey Mysterio, Scott Steiner, Bill Goldberg. Like, all of these people fit firmly into this new era of WCW and ECW. Indeed. Because multiples of these folks have ties to both sides.
Both
companies. But this is pre those guys coming in.
Yeah.
But this is, or just around that time. So I want to tell you who could have fit perfectly in 4 different instances on the WCW side, and in 4 instances, he'll tell you who would have fit on the ECW side. Then we'll go over some other particulars. But just imagining I'm not even going to call it a draft, but imagine, if you will, a declaration of victory special, where Shane McMahon, Paulie Dangerously, these power brokers of the Alliance.
Right, because Bischoff has to come in yet. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. They come in and they say who is going to be on which show. So Shane talks about Booker T, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Diamond Dallas Page, Edge, and William Regal being on his Monday Night Nitro, because Edge wrestled as Damon Stryker, Triple H wrestled as Jean-Paul Levesque and Terrorizing.
I was about to say, that's the one I always
on WCW, and obviously William Regal was Lord Stevie Regal, DDP and Booker were themselves. But it's just, this is a first declaration of how that the shows will play out. And so on ECW, what does Paulie Dangerously declare?
He declares Stone Cold Steve Austin, Rob Van Dam,
Love it.
Kurt Angle, the irony, Raven.
Well, I mean, it's a guy who's been wanting for years.
Yeah, and Brock Lesnar.
It makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Brock Lesnar has legitimate lifelong ties to Paul Heyman.
Yep.
And Steve Austin became prominent in ECW on Hardcore TV after he left WCW.
You can argue like aspects of the Stone Cold there.
I certainly would. Yes.
From
the superstar Steve Austin in ECW. Exactly. Yes. And like I said, Kurt Angle is a guy that Paul Heyman wanted
from
the get-go, and Raven is his, and Rob Van Dam.
I'm about to say Raven is one of his aces long time.
Same with Rob Van Dam, exactly. So in the second round for the declaration of, victory, yes, Shane says that Hogan, Hall, and Nash, the New World Order, the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane, the Samoan SWAT team, The Rock and Rikishi, APA, Farouk and Bradshaw, and then the Gun Show, Billy Gunn and Big Show, are going to be on Nitro.
And Paul Heyman says the Dudleys,
Perfect.
Chris Jericho and Christian.
Love it.
The Impact players of Justin Credible and Lance Storm. The Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff, fit right into ECW.
Absolutely.
And the Right Claw of Perry Saturn and Stevie Richards.
Which I called him that because of a Raven's Claw.
Yep. Makes sense.
And again, this is post-Alliance. This is after WCW and ECW have won, so of course these things will have already been established. The idea that The Rock and Rikishi are working together, that Christian and Chris Jericho are working together, things of that nature. Obviously, Kane and The Undertaker make sense because they've been together for off and on since Kane existed. Exactly. In the third round of the declaration, Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, Billy Kidman, Chuck Palumbo, Gold Dust, Big Boss Man, and a team that I call the TVA, the only team keeping the Alliance alive post-Alliance, that being Test and Val Venus Alliance.
Wow. What a group. TVA. What a group indeed.
So I just wanted to keep the Alliance name post the Alliance winning.
Makes sense.
And I was like, how do I keep this going? Test and Val Venus.
That makes it work. So this next declaration, near and dear to my own heart, if you watched Alpha Entertainment Worldwide, we have the picks of Jazz, Lita, Molly Holly, Trish Stratus, Jacqueline, and Ivory.
Love it. Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out, and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long. Available now. Follow the link in the description that will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there, you can get hats, shirts, posters, much, much more, but most importantly, the story itself. So obviously, in this telling of WWF going away, the Thursday night show, that being Hardcore TV, gets the women on the roster.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it extra makes sense since in
Paul Heyman will actually let them do insane stuff.
that, and WWF had SmackDown get the cruiserweights, but WCW actually makes more sense to have the cruiserweight division.
Yeah.
So in the final round,
Built-in history.
Yeah, built-in history. In the final round, Hurricane Helms, Stacy Keibler, Tori Wilson, Terry Reynolds, Scotty 2 Hotty, and Sean Stasiak are the final declarations of the roster. And again, that makes things make sense. Like I said, all the light flyers coming to WCW Nitro, and all the women who don't wrestle also on Nitro.
Yeah, because duh.
Yeah, if there's no title, why would you be on ECW?
Exactly.
Or if you aren't going to compete for the title, you don't need to be on ECW.
If you ain't winning no championships, you don't need to be there. And then finally for ECW's declaration, you have the Japanese buzzsaw Tajiri. You have the ECW poster boy for the longest period of time, and Tommy Dreamer.
Love it.
You have Al Snow, another ECW legend. The Holly cousins, so Hardcore and Crash Holly. The Baldies, which would be Albert and Maven. And then last, but certainly not least, Mark Henry.
Love it. So I kept our Alpha Entertainment Worldwide gimmick where Mark Henry gets chosen last so that he can get offended by it. And I gave the name the Baldies to Maven and A-Train or Albert or Prince Albert or Lord Tensai.
Pick one of his 17 names. We can call him Giant Bernard again if you want.
Exactly. So I gave them the name the Baldies because A, they're bald, and B, it was an ECW tag team.
Yep.
So I love the idea that at the launch of this new world where there is no WWF because they let the Panda have it, where the big gold belt is the most prestigious title on Nitro, obviously the ECW World Championship, and here's actually one of the biggest changes from the real life to this world, and that is the concept that ECW never had titles introduced in the Alliance Invasion. I always thought that made them look less than.
Which was probably the point.
Exactly. But because we had the last television and the last world champion in the company when the Alliance formed, that being Rhino, I see no reason why Paulie Dangerously would not have bestowed upon Rhino both the television and the world titles that he had last held in ECW, just like Booker T was holding the United States and the World Heavyweight title.
Yeah, I always forget that.
In the Alliance. And so it actually would look perfectly
symmetrical.
Yes. It would make it make sense that when these shows came about, WCW had the world title, the US title, and the tag titles. ECW, Hardcore TV, would have the ECW World Heavyweight title, the
television title.
Well, the television title and the World Tag titles.
Yep.
Now, as both shows go on existing, I think that that's when you introduce the Cruiserweight Championship, when Shannon Moore, Rey Mysterio, and others get introduced. Jamie Noble, for instance.
Yeah.
That's when you can introduce the Cruiserweight title on Nitro and the women's
title on ECW.
Perfect, yes. But let's talk about how this new world would deal with monthly pay-per-views. So there was a period of time when I thought to myself, I could make a pay-per-view schedule where every pay-per-view was either a WCW or an ECW show because there was so much intellectual property there.
Yeah, done.
But I after coming up with this plan, I realized there's such a thing as the spoils of war.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a thing as I defeated you, that is now mine.
Yep.
And so with that, January will be ECW's yearly pay-per-view with
Guilty as Charged.
WCW and ECW will share the February pay-per-view of the Royal Rumble, the first spoil of war that the companies have kept
together
in their grasp. They continue to work together in the month of March when they both do
WrestleMania.
Because how exactly could anybody give up those two pay-per-views?
True. Very true.
WCW in the month of April will have Super Brawl.
Classic.
ECW in May.
Obviously, we'll have Anarchy Rules.
And in the month of June, it's the Bash at the Beach from WCW. July,
Heat Wave.
a very summertime and ECW event. I love that NXT has brought it back from the dead.
I agree. I think Heatwave's a great pay-per-view.
So both ECW and WCW run August and September shows, which are
SummerSlam
and Survivor Series. WCW gets October, which is Halloween Havoc. ECW gets November
to remember.
And December is WCW Starrcade. And this is a way to make the world make sense with Vince and co. giving up the WWF initials to the Panda Bear and continuing the history of wrestling in its known way. And I even think that you could make the argument that in this ruthless aggression era of WCW and ECW, you could very easily see the rise of so many people that we already saw, but just in a different way. So to me, there would be no reason to have Evolution on Nitro. But what you could, should, and would do is have the rise of the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Dave Bautista, Triple H, and Randy Orton. On ECW, I have no doubt that the perfect place for the Doctor of Thugonomics,
John Cena.
So he could be television champion, work his way up to the main event. My goodness, I just think that this could have worked so well if Vince was not
Petty.
Petty is the perfect word, and would have been willing to invest in the product that he bought.
Nah, you wouldn't waste his time doing that for another 2 decades. If that, when was the first time he used any WCW stuff?
Okay, so the first time I think was Great American Bash, and so that was like 2004, and even then he didn't treat it well.
Nah.
The reason the Elimination Chamber existed is because he refused to let Triple H have a War Games match.
Yeah, which is so funny.
And as soon as Triple H got power in NXT, he brought War Games to prominence. As soon as he got power on the main roster, War Games was brought to prominence.
Become part of Survivor Series.
Now, I would make one small change if I had
on it.
influence. No, it wouldn't be exclusive to Survivor Series.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
So, to me, War Games should be able to happen at any pay-per-view, let's say, except WrestleMania and Royal Rumble. You wouldn't say it, but you would just know.
I'm about to say it's implied.
Yeah, you would just know it's not going to be Royal Rumble War Games or WrestleMania War Games. But any other pay-per-view throughout the year, No Way Out, War Games. Bad Blood, War Games. SummerSlam, War Games. Wherever it makes sense on the calendar year is where the match should happen, not, we're in November, we must have 5-on-5 twice over. So, yeah.
2 rings, 1 cage.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking this trip with me, enjoying this imaginary
journey that we've going on
of the Butterfly Effect Wrestling, where we just figure out how things could have been different.
What a world it could have been. But sometimes you got to come back to reality.
We live there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I don't like it that much.
Not a fan.
Thank you.